Okay, so we're going to talk about working with schoolyards and how we actually price up a job, how it's installed for a playground and also for a sports field. First off, you have to have everything demoed, okay? So they go down about 5 inches down, okay? So you can see this is about a 4-inch plank. We go down, it has to be completely leveled off, okay? Next part is there has to be a mow strip. So this concrete part has to be around a complete entire outside of the area. Now, the next part is all of these locations and schools, they're not allowed to have any nails that can be pulled up. So they need to have this, basically it's like a bender board or 2x4. It has to be nailed in, so you can see these, okay, with a special machine, and it holds it to the wall. Later on, once we get to that insulation part, then the staples that hold it in are going to go into this part here, so that way it holds it down very tightly. So they're going to use about 3.5 inches of class 2 only. You can see they're going to run these lines out so they know where it's level, so they can bring it up. It's going to be approximately about 1 inch off from the curb. Okay, it's going to be compacted down with a roller. It's going to get nice and perfect. So you can see they line it all out perfectly, so they know exactly where they're going. Okay. The nails itself that are put into the bender board, which is approximately 2 inches by 4 inches. Okay, it's used with a ram set. It will literally go right through into the concrete, holding that board onto there. So once we have the 3 inches of the class 2 compacted down, it's nice and level, we're actually going to put down a 1-inch foam roll. Okay, just going to go along the whole thing. Now this is for play sets only. Typically sports fields generally don't have a foam roll underneath. They just have about 4 inches of actual, or 3.5, 4 inches of the class 2 that's compacted. Okay, so once everything is compacted down, we're going to lay out the actual turf. Now the turf is going to be laid down. It's important to note that the stitch rate between this is actually quite low, okay? You can see even on here, there's almost 1 inch in between to a certain point where it's not as thick as residential turf. This is on purpose because you need to put a lot of infill in. Playgrounds have about a 2-inch pile height. When it's sports fields, they actually have a 3-inch. Now keep in mind, the 3 inches because they haven't got the foam underlay underneath, and it's going to be a different infill that actually goes on top of it, inside of it. So once this stuff is laid down, okay, then need to seam this together. It's not a typical residential where they might use nails, because no nails can be used whatsoever. So around the outside, that's when they're going to use the staples. It's going to be stretched out. It's going to be stapled along into the board itself. Now, when it's seamed, it's going to use seaming tape, which is then going to be applied with a glue machine, and it's going to be put together and compacted down and held together. So this is seaming tape. So they put this in between the seams once they cut off the excess part on the outside, and then it's going to be a glue machine that evenly distributes the glue in between, the adhesive. Then behind it kind of folds it together and pulls it together and holds it on tight. You're not allowed to have any nails or anything that could come up with a playground or a sports field. Now it's important to note that it is extra amount if they actually want to have white lines. That isn't done by paint. And there's a special machine that cuts exactly those inches across. You have to chalk it out first, whatever lines you want. Let's say you want to do a big square in the middle, like a soccer field. Once it's been chalked out, you would then use that machine to cut it out, and then you would use a white turf that goes at the same pile height that goes inside of that area, and that has to be re-glued once again with seaming tape. Now with infill, once again, it is different depending on the application. When it comes to school playgrounds, standard industrial sand 16 by 20 is what they use. Okay, because it already has a foam underlay of 1 inch, they just have around about 2 pounds per square foot. Now, if it's for a sports field, it will not have a foam underlay, so instead it will have a mixture of like a rubber that's been into tiny little balls with a mixture 50-50 roughly of the sand as well. But it will have, that turf has a pile height of 3 inches. So it goes almost 2.5 inches of the rubber and the industrial sand when it comes to sports fields.